Yeah, she looks glamorous. We've just gone live for our 4th episode of Co-Videos, and I'm really excited. I've got a very special lady, a very good friend of mine tonight. Look, I met Heather a couple of years ago now in the south of France, and I've got the official biography, which I'll read quickly, but I'm just going to say, like, for the last couple of years, it's been an absolute joy getting to know this lady. She's a complete delight. I also wanted Heather this week. I wanted you this week, Heather, specifically because it is Mental Health Awareness Week, and the theme of this year is kindness, and you are one of the kindest people I know. So you're the perfect guest. You're the perfect guest for this year. Let me give you the official internet version of Heather, and then we'll find out about the real Heather. Born in Tyne and Wear, Heather is a public personality, environmental speaker, activist, and entrepreneur. Following a tragic collision with a Piche motorcycle in '93, we'll touch on this in a bit. Heather lost her left leg below the knee, and true to her style and power of never letting things get her down, she used the experience to set up a charitable organisation, recycling old prostheses for disadvantaged amputees. Following much public interest and personal intrusion, Heather's gone on to become a prominent environmental speaker, an animal rights activist. She's heavily involved in numerous charity organisations and philanthropic efforts. And in the spirit of this week's Mental Health Awareness Week, I have to say, from my own experience, as I've already mentioned, she's one of the kindest humans I've ever met. Her company VBites was formed in 2009 and recently included the launch of a 55-acre vegan Silicon Valley, which I'm excited to ask you some questions about, in the Northumberland countryside. The site's offering manufacturing storage business space exclusively to vegan entrepreneurs and plant-based businesses. There are a lot of blanks in that biography I've just read out. We'll fill in some of those as we go. But look, like, genuinely, I don't think all the stuff that you read about St. Heather on the internet is the real Heather. I've really, really enjoyed the last few years. It's been an absolute delight, and there's so much more to you than I think people understand and realise. We're going to touch a little bit on the past in a minute, but really, like, for 45 minutes or an hour, it would be amazing if we could just focus on the present and the future. And, like, Heather, how are you? What's going on? How's lockdown?
I'm good. I mean, we're running food, vegan businesses, as you know, so it's never been busier. A lot of small vegan industries have gone under that we've been trying to help pull back up because they've been very dependent on food service. And knowing the food industry anyway, pre-Brexit and pre-COVID and all the frustrations they've had, we kind of knew that there was going to be a strain, because we started the vegan industry, the vegan food business 20 odd years ago, but it's got really, really complicated because we want the meat and dairy industry to convert, but at the same time, we don't want them to swallow up the small businesses. So we've been trying to sort of do this balance between helping what's going to make a difference on the planet, which is to get the meat and dairy industry into it, but at the same time keep the family businesses going and try and get people to buy British, because 90% of all vegan food comes from Europe and the rest of the world, and to try and sort of educate the public. And food service is dead. You know, we used to be one of the biggest sellers of vegan fish to Green King pubs. That died overnight because they had to close down, but we kind of prepared for it, and we're online. Retail is pretty steady. Online is booming. You're the AI specialist. You know, I'm rubbish at all that IT stuff. But we
got you live on StreamYard. Like, we managed to get that working, so you're not that bad.
It took me quite a while. I'm absolutely useless. I can use my iPhone, and I've managed to get my iPad to work on something other than Netflix. So I'm quite proud at the moment.
Let me, I'm going to take you back to business in a minute, but you've gone straight to it because that's the way your brain works. But how are you doing? How's the last couple of weeks, 8-9 weeks, been treating you guys? Are you all healthy?
Well, it's been busier than it's ever been, but the difference has been that it's been in one spot. Mm-hmm. So, you know, get up at 5, email cleanse 5 to 8, and then do the overall meeting with all the factory guys, and then if I get a chance, I'll do a Joe Wicks, jump in that for half an hour, So
He's done all right, hasn't he?
he's doing so well. I mean,
He's
it's
done all
brilliant.
right.
It's brilliant. My boyfriend introduced me to him, and I've always been an athlete, and I was like, I'm not going to do a workout on a video, but I've got quite hooked on it in the garden. So quick
Yeah,
30 minutes of that, knowing it's out the way, because if you don't do it in the morning, you never do. And then back-to-back calls, conference calls, organizing product, and just intense, really, really intense. Luckily, we've got a garden. I
yeah,
can't imagine I can imagine what it's like when I worked in the war zone in a basement for 9 months. But this is like a silent war that's going on right now. So yeah, it's been quite heavy, but I have to say, it sounds terrible, but after getting all the information on what's going on, I don't sit in front of the telly. I haven't got time to
mm,
watch and read, because you can switch on your positive receptors or your negative. So if you sit and watch negative,
oh, yeah,
stuff all the time, you're going to just be brought down. So I'm pretty positive, actually. The good side of this is that the frustrating side is I'm a single parent, so I've obviously need to make sure I focus, on my kid with schoolwork and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's quite good for children to learn, that everything isn't on a plate, and that times are tough. I came from a tough childhood, as you know, so it toughened me up for the future. And
yeah,
I think the parents need to feel less guilty about, managing their time perfectly, and they need to, depending on the age of the kid, understand that it's okay that you're trying to survive, to feed the family and work hard. And then I kind of, having been in hospital in the past for 5 months, you learn to compartmentalize things. So you say,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
I'm going to fix this amount of time. Because when you're busy, there's never enough time. There's always another 1,000 emails to do. There's always another emergency. There's always. And if you actually take a deep breath between work and then the minute with your kids, you're going to feel all right about yourself and know that 99% of people are in the same situation, that
yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
work-life balance. But there was that before. It's more intense because you've got kids screaming in the background. You're trying to do a conference call, and you know someone's brushing their teeth, and there's all dogs barking. But because that's happening with everybody, people should just get more relaxed about it. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's leveled the playing field a little bit, isn't it? You
yeah,
just listen. You just touched on something. I'm not going to dwell on the past too much. I don't want to. We're here to talk about what's going on right now and stuff in the future. But it would be remiss of me not to ask you a couple of questions about. I think, from my perspective, having heard this story from you a few years ago now, maybe moments that kind of shaped almost this conversation right here. So when we met in France a couple of years ago, you were telling the kind of Heather story, the journey, and it's quite a remarkable story of situations and things that have happened. But I do want to, because we're going to talk about veganism and the healthy living and that kind of stuff, I do want to just go back to 1993, and you were talking about something that happened, and you just touched on it with the 5 months in hospital thing. You started telling me about the situation that happened after the accident, after you'd been hit by the motorbike, wasn't it?
yeah,
And you'd lost your leg. You were in hospital, and it had not gone well. Not like losing a leg is pretty bad anyway. But do you mind just telling that story? Because I think it actually might tell a little bit about the reason that you're here doing the kind of VBites, like
yeah,
vegan mission thing right now. It seemed to me like it started then.
basically, it gets more mad than that. I mean, my mum had lost her leg at the same age as me, and she died many years later from blood circulation at the Middlesex Hospital in London when she was 47. They reattached it, which was the worst thing you can do. But as a surgeon back then, reattachment meant you were a good surgeon. They didn't think past onto whether you could live better with prosthetics, because prosthetics weren't good. So when I had my accident, I'd been working in the war in the former Yugoslavia, fine, saw a lot of stuff, but didn't lose my leg, was very lucky. Came back to England, was advising the Shadow Defence Secretary at the time, Dr. David Clark. Crossed the street, police motorcycle, chopped my leg off on a false alarm. Ended up in hospital, and they said to my best mate, who you've met, Ruth, who's still with me 26 years later, you know, she's going to die, go and say goodbye. She's not going to live. And obviously I did. And then I was in a hospital room and had an infection in my leg, and it kept going further and further up my leg, and they kept chopping my leg off more and more. And eventually they wanted to chop it above the knee. And my girlfriend from America ran in to see me, and she said, "You got to go vegan." And I was like, this is 1993. And I was like, vegan? What the heck is vegan? You know, I'm a Geordie sausage and mash girl. What is that? And eating vegetables only. Anyway, but you know, when you're ill and you're going to lose your knee, you'll do anything. And
Yep.
unfortunately, it takes most people to get ill to actually start looking at what's the best thing for them. So my biggest advice would be try and prevent yourself ever getting ill,
Yep.
and learn from other people's mistakes and focus on what the best thing is. So obviously, you know, I'm lying in bed, and this psychologist comes in, and she says, "You know, you're being far too positive about this, Heather." And I was like, well, I have worked in a war zone, and I have seen people blown up, and I am really lucky to be alive. And my mum did die from this, so I'm still alive. So can we just focus on the positive? But she just wanted to focus on the negative. And I was like, I'm going to get the hell out of this hospital. So when my girlfriend said, come and be vegan, she took me off to Hippocrates in West Palm Beach. And they shoved me with all this wheatgrass juice in every orifice you can imagine. And
So,
it tasted.
sorry to interrupt you. Didn't you escape out a window or something?
Well, I know that was to go and see. I escaped
Oh,
out.
that was a different story.
No, that was, yeah, no, it was the same hospital, but I got so bored in there. And my boyfriend at the time said, I'm going to take you to La Boheme. I'm going to sneak you out the window. I was only on the first floor, so I hopped down on one leg and sneaked me to the opera and sneaked me back in again because I wasn't meant to be out. So that was that story. Good memory.
Sorry. I thought that you'd escaped to go to the vegan commune in Miami.
No, I didn't. I discharged myself after 5 months because I'd crushed my pelvis, so I was flat on my back for quite a while. But I didn't want to lose my knee, and the infection was pretty bad. So I thought, well, they're going to chop it later anyway. I might as well go and try this vegan stuff. And I went to Hippocrates in West Palm Beach, and they started sort of shoving all this stuff, disgusting thing called wheatgrass at the time, and tasted like saccharine-y, horrible taste. But I healed within 2 weeks, and I was pumped with antibiotics. My colon was a mess. Everything was a complete mess. And so I stayed there for 5 weeks. I was being followed by the press a lot at the time, all positive, because I was, I'd had following around, model overcomes adversity. It was all very positive. And then they asked me, how did you heal yourself? So I started writing books on how to heal yourself and learned more and more about veganism and stayed vegan for about 2 years. But that's not a life you can continue in freezing cold England. So that's when I started to make alternate things at home. And that's how I got involved in vegan foods and manufacturing, because I basically just wanted to feed myself a vegan burger, chorizo, and schnitzel without it just being a bit of lettuce.
It was when you were telling us that. I was with you. I had always kind of associated, veganism, and I apologize to any of the viewers who are vegans. Like, my mind has been shifted by Heather. I was always tofu weaving hippies, and I think it needs a narrative shift. But when you were talking about, the healing properties of the cleansing ability, or the cleansing properties of going vegan, and then there's the environmental stuff, and we can touch on that as well, but just the general well-being benefits. I just thought it was remarkable, like absolutely remarkable, because we forget how much processed crap goes into our system in the fast-paced life that we live right now. And it was I just found it absolutely remarkable that, the shift in diet that started to make you heal, not the medicine. It's fantastic, really.
Well, the thing that I found out at first was when we're young, we have a lot of hydrochloric acid in our stomach, which breaks down the food, creates the chyme, and takes the enzymes out of it, and gives us that feel-good thing with the omega-3s. But as we get older, the hydrochloric acid, especially with stress, reduces. So, even if you shove broccoli inside you, if it's not going to digest, it becomes a putrefied mess, and then it ferments, and then it gets stuck in your colon. And because we make 80 to 90% of our serotonin for our brain in our digestive system, If your digestive system is not working correctly, you can have really severe mental health problems. And it's not discussed enough. It's
Mm-hmm.
not explained enough. Doctors don't understand it enough because they're only given minimal amount of hours in nutrition. But what I wanted to do was start bringing this into food. So one of the interesting things was that when you live off a raw diet, unless you have amazing hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes in your system, it won't digest properly. Now, that's the polar opposite of what a vegan should say, but that's what it's like. Everything that's happened to me has happened to me to come up with a solution to understand what the problem is. So, yes, I was vegan, raw vegan, and then moved out of that. But then years later, I couldn't even digest a salad. My colon couldn't deal with it from years and years of stress and from a minimizing of hydrochloric acid. And as I analyzed it more, I found out that a very small amount of people can't convert a short chain fatty acid from vegan food, from flaxseed and things, to a long chain fatty acid. So that's when I started to investigate algae, the fact that people think omega-3 comes from fish, and it doesn't. It comes from the
Hold up. I'm going to that one shortly. I want to touch on that one a little bit, because that again is another one that blew my tiny small little mind, on the fatty acids and the omegas and stuff like that. But the other thing I think is, again, I think a lot of people are going to watch these conversations and things like this and haven't clocked the environmental damage of widespread farming and how veganism and that kind of shift in diet, if more of us do it, even like not full scale shift to veganism, but little adjustments in our diet and our eating habits, can have a massive impact on the environment as well, which again...
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, because the dairy industry and the meat industry, but especially the dairy industry, have now embraced the fact, mainly initially because of money, because 32% of the dairy industry has died in the milk sector because of the vegan coffee drinker. Now, that doesn't mean that coffee drinker is vegan. It just means they've been introduced, as we started about 14 years ago, bringing soy milks into coffee houses and oat milks and then almond milks and all this kind of stuff. So people have made that shift, not even going vegan because it could be lactose intolerance. So the dairy industry have realized if they don't get a piece of the vegan pie, they're going to be out the door in 10 years. So we work with a number of dairy companies now, replicate their cheeses, replicate milks for them to have an offering to the Costco's and stuff of this world. And we've shown them that you can do really great business from ethical, environmental, and animal friendly products. Now, you have to do that in business, otherwise they're not even going to be interested, because their fear is they're going to lose their business. So like we've done with a number of businesses, if you solve their problem and show them that they can make money from an ethical, environmental, and animal friendly way that's healthy for the individual, why wouldn't they move that? Unfortunately, it's took 26 years, and had they listened, way back then, the planet would be a healthier place. And we wanted to help educate farmers that they can make more money from growing oat for oat protein isolates, mushroom protein isolates, things that are local procurement that don't need to be shipped from China and places. They're now listening to that. The farmers rely on 3 billion a year from us, the taxpayers, to subsidize their income. What I want to do is make them self-sufficient, show them, if the land is arable, that they can actually grow the product that we, the manufacturers, can make into something that the burger addicted and cheese addicted people can get into. Because eventually, we fed 4,000 kids for about 4 years. I donated $1 million of food to the Bronx in New York. Now, these were kids that lived off McDonald's. So they only had $1 a day to live. So I said, what if they don't have to pay to eat? And we match and replicate the fast food, the burger, the chicken nugget, and then we change their taste buds and their metabolism by giving them like for like. And psychologically, they think they're still eating a fast food burger. And that's how ultimately all these plant-based burgers have come out in fast food chains now, because we initiate that in the beginning and showed that it can happen. What happens next is for people who think, well, if you're vegan, why on earth would you want a meat replacement? Well, what happens next is it's like weaning someone off a drug. You give them like for like, they think psychologically it's the same. Then their taste buds, their metabolism, everything about themselves changes, like we showed in Game Changers. And then you implement a bit of lettuce, then a tomato, then some broccoli, then some this. And then eventually the plate becomes 90% vegetables and 10% meat, fish, or dairy alternate. And then eventually you end up only doing it once or twice a week. And this is scientifically proven. We've done it for 15 years now. And, most of the Bronx is plant-based now because we've got them to, for years now, we got them to grow vegetables all on the top of the rooftops. The brain function went up by 49%, asthma down, eczema down.
That's amazing.
Everything just by literally feeding the body healthy food. But it only works if you can digest the food that you're eating. And that's what's really, really important. We are unique. Someone could have cauliflower, they will blow up like 9 months pregnant. Someone else won't. So you really have to not just follow things, but educate yourself and listen to yourself. It takes 72 hours really from start to finish to process an item of food to know if it's good for you or if you can't digest it. And you can retrain the digestive with the microbiome, doing probiotics and things. There's lots of ways, but even some probiotics don't work for people. So you really have to listen to yourself. If you feel tired after eating, you're not eating the right food. Food is for energizing. It's not for, I'm totally stuffed, lying, falling asleep on the sofa, listening to cricket on a Sunday.
So I've since I met you, I've been far more not health conscious because I live such a busy life and I juggle so many different things, but I think I'm more aware, diet aware now, and exactly those kind of things. So if I feel a bit rubbish after eating and things like that, you go like, I've just eaten something, like I diarize stuff a little bit more. I've substituted quite a lot. Your chorizo, the VBites chorizo, you heard it here first, is amazing. And I, again, like it's been a revelation. Like I switched because of our conversations, and my uncle, who's a dairy farmer, an old dairy farmer, he would be devastated with me for saying this, but I've switched to oat milk and coffee. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, just makes me feel better. I'm not quite so throaty and I don't have, so there's definitely benefits. Listen, you are, I think, and I'm not blowing smoke, like you're one of the most positive people I think I've ever met. And for somebody that's been battered around quite a lot in various different directions, I just find it absolutely remarkable. You're focused and incredibly motivated. Where does that come from? Like where does Heather find that drive? And I also want to, before you answer, I also kind of want to get your opinion whether you think some people are kind of born with it. So is it kind of nature or is it kind of nurture? Like where does it come from?
I think it's nurture. I think you're born with it, but I think that people can work on themselves, and nutrition is a big part of that. Your surroundings, your stress, your environment, learning what your limits are and being honest with yourself and not feeling that it's weak, that you can't keep up with the Joneses or be like someone else, because we're all strong in different ways. And, I think we're born with a certain size. Let's say it's a sand rock, and life comes at us and chips away. And eventually, as we go through more and more struggle, it starts to become like a sand timer, and it's just literally dripping away. And I've only probably had one moment in my life where I've just gone, oh my God, what is going on? And how much more of this can I take? And that was when I was fighting the media, because I can handle anything that I'm in control of. So let's say, you chop my arm off, my legs off, my this. I can control myself. So I can go, yeah, this is shit. But it's an arm, it's a leg. But when you are systematically abused with lies and lies and lies and lies that destroy people around you love, people around you care for, people around you fought for, and you see them go down, that's what affects me. And that's what makes me, injustice is what really, really you know, puts me in the wrong place. But if it's anything just physical or something I've got to deal with myself, then I can deal with it. So, you know, other people, and I know some people that have said, it wouldn't have bothered me what someone wrote about me and this and that. And it really wouldn't, because there's not a lot of depth to that person. But it would bother them if they lost their leg or lost their arm, because that's about them. So it's all down to different personalities. So my weakness is, which I'm getting better on, that I care too much. And it's actually, you can care too much. You can't.
Weakness. I think
It is because when you care so much, you make mistakes in your choices. So you have to care, but you have to choose what you care about and who you care about. My mistake was I cared about everything and everyone and tried to help everything and everyone, and really got slapped badly in the face. And you know, for example, my business, you know, everyone's in trouble at the moment, and I've bailed out so many people to the point that I could put my own business at risk, because I just feel bad for them. I'm just like, oh my God, that's awful. We've got to fix that. We've got to do that. So that is a weakness, because I'll put myself in a vulnerable position. But the one thing that I am happy about is that I've done everything for the right reasons, and I can sleep at night, and I feel good about that. And when I die, will I regret that I tried to help? Probably not.
Good.
Would I rather fall asleep on a bed of paper? No. You know, so it's like, if you can make a difference while you're here, then do it.
Yeah.
But be careful who you try and help, because not everybody has the same incentives and motivations.
Yeah, very wise, very wise. I mean, like, again, your fortitude for dealing with this stuff, and you flip it off. You're like, oh, the media gets me down. I'll deal with all that kind of stuff. But like last year, we had a crack at trying to sort out all the fake news for you, didn't we? And there was so much BS on Wikipedia. And what was remarkable, I don't even mind saying it on camera, because I was like, even I was shocked. When you try and take away some of the lies that are written about people, but you know, other people as well, within 2 days they've come back, and this is just insane. And I was feeling bad for you. You were just kind of like used to it and getting on with it, and actually, you know, the fortitude to deal with that. I just think I don't think you give yourself enough credit sometimes about how tough you have to be to deal with some of that stuff. Because
the good thing about beating Murdoch last August was that people finally went, oh, how stupid were we to believe the tabloid media? But that took me 17 years and put some journalists in prison with hacked off. You know, it took a long time. And Wikipedia is just a joke. I mean, you know, unless you're a scientist, and even then it's not always correct. I just can't even believe it exists, because as you taught me, I said, how can these people write these lies? And like, let's say, for example, I had a court case against somebody, or against a journalist or whatever, and I won it. So it's legally won. So it should go against the lie. And actually it was completely lies, because they won in court and was proven the opposite. They won't allow you to put the legal thing on Wikipedia.
It's bonkers. It is actually bonkers.
But they allow you to put the lie, and that's what I don't understand. How are they allowed to put the lie, but the truth is not allowed to go on there? That's what I just don't get.
It's a funny old thing, the internet. I tell you, I've never quite got used to it. I think me and you, well, you know, you're a little bit older than me, but you know, we've both come from the pre-internet era, like into this. Like, I worry about our kids, I have to say. So look, just hitting on to the present now, because we don't want to dwell too much on what's happened in the past, although we have done. I'm kind of talking to interesting people at the moment in these videos, really, because I think COVID and the lockdown and everything has conjured up so much like bizarreness, but also, you know, in a way that I don't think anybody could have predicted. But how do you think it's all been handled? Like, I don't want to get too political, but I'm just curious to find out from kind of Heather's point of view, a lady with plenty of lived experience. Like, you know, how do you think the last 10 weeks have been handled for the UK, the country, the pandemic? Has it been handled well, or?
I think it's been handled to the best abilities of the current government we've got at the moment. So
Very
that's
political and
the
diplomatic
nice.
of you.
No, but it's about the nicest way to do it. I don't know if part of my life I was involved, and I have a doctorate in human security from war zones and things. So, having worked in many war zones, you really need to have people that know what the heck they're doing. So, my biggest fear is the advisors around Boris have not been the right advisors. I don't expect him to have the know-all, like I wouldn't know how to run an AI thing, of how to react to something. But he should have had the right people. But I'm not surprised that he hasn't got the right people around him, or maybe has more recently, because when he turned up at hospital, being an environmentalist as he is, riding on a bicycle, and he was handing over a plate of ham salad and telling the NHS that everyone should have butter on their toast. Now, meat and dairy are the biggest causes of global warming in the world. So even if you want to give someone a salad, give them some vegan ham and some vegan butter, if that's what you want to do. So when he did that, I knew that where this COVID deciders were going to go was going to be inadequate. But what I would have done in this situation is, it might be a conspiracy, but I don't believe that such extreme measures have gone on in the world if there weren't some extreme death totals in China. With my sort of background history, I really don't believe that's possible, because the amounts and the deaths that they were putting out in the public, it wasn't big enough for the extreme reaction that was going on around the rest of the world. So knowing that the government would know and should know, I would have done a very quick lockdown immediately. And then I would have done testing for the frontline people immediately. Vaccines, it's going to take a long time to work, even if a vaccine is going to work, and what the side effects of that vaccine would be, and knowing that there's no such thing as a flu vaccine because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of other bugs around, that's just about the herding technique. And I would have just done it more incrementally and let people out bit by bit, tested that section. Now that section can go out. But hindsight's a very easy thing to say. We can only talk about what they could do now. And what I would do now is basically only say to people, go out as we are at the moment. But if you can work from home, I mean, I'm not going to go on and say what he said, but I really think that it needs to be done in increments, because no way, unfortunately, as hard as it's going to be for parents, should kids be going back in with their snotty noses, rubbing themselves all over metal that another kid gets and then goes back home and gives it to grandma or whatever. I just don't see how going back to school is going to happen anywhere before September onwards. But I just think there's much more simple ways to make it happen and keep people's sanity.
Yeah, and, you definitely don't need the Prime Minister coming out and telling everybody to get in their cars and drive around. Because the last 10 weeks, on a positive, the air's been nice and fresh, and there've been no aeroplanes and cars, and those people that can get out and have gardens and stuff like that. And I know it's a nice situation to be in. Probably kind of those people that have managed to stay well are probably feeling the effects of like not having so many cars on the road and stuff. And then you've got a PM that stands.
They definitely are. They definitely are, but there's a balance, because they can't allow the economy to just go, into the depths of despair. I'd love to know really what our numbers are with, the fact that they did Brexit and all that money's come back into the economy, and how quickly has it come back into the economy, and how much money do we actually have? But the thing that disgusts me the most is all these businesses are struggling. And apart from like Coutts and NatWest and British banks that are really trying to support, give mortgage holidays, give credit card holidays, some of the other banks, and I won't say any names today, but some of the interest rates they're charging and the personal guarantees, and it's just horrific what they're doing. And I would implement a law immediately in Parliament that says, seeing as we bailed out the banks back in 2008, they should be now helping us with their tiny interest rates that they've got for the money that they've got, and they shouldn't be charging 5 to 15%, some of the finance houses are charging desperate businesses that I've been helping out. And it's horrifying. And they're trying to keep their business alive, which is basically the small businesses of Britain are what's going to keep this economy alive. So if these banks don't support them, and the only people that can force them to do that is the government, to actually say, okay, 2% maximum interest on a government-backed loan. Because even though the government are giving 80% government-backed loans, they still have to do the due diligence of the company. And then when they do the due diligence of the company struggling, they go, oh, well, we're going to charge you ridiculous interest rates. And that's actually what's going on around the country at the moment. And I spoke to the government a couple of times last week to say, this law has to be implemented straight away, that this cheap money that the banks have has to go to the public to survive. And yes, they need due diligence, but not at a 5 to 15% interest rate with a personal guarantee, which is a lot of the dodgy finance houses are doing, because people, can't get the money from their banks. So
yeah, there's a long road ahead. There is definitely a long road ahead for businesses.
So much profiteering going on, and that the government can handle. So aside from the health issues, the strain which goes to mental health issues that families and businesses are under. I mean, I had one lady who was delisted from a certain high street store from her food, and she was suicidal because she couldn't get the money together to survive, to get through the COVID period. And that is horrific. And that's what's going on in many households, with the pressures of that and kids, and that's what it needs to focus on. Mental health to get through it, and they can do that by alleviating their financial stresses and strains.
It's interesting actually, because I've obviously done like a ton of work over the last few years in the mental health space, and we always look at grief, physical things that have happened, past experiences and whatever. Like debt is right up there as the one of the most prevalent causes of suicide and severe mental health problems, and we're just about to drive a whole bunch of society, even those who have been furloughed on a portion of their wages and stuff like that, into debts and things like that. Like I'm petrified of the next kind of couple of years in terms of income, which is mental health.
Yeah, it's a domino effect, because if the family are under financial strain, they argue more. There can be violence, then the kids get to see it all. So it becomes a domino effect. And that's why it's really, really important that the government take those unnecessary stresses and strains off businesses by forcing banks to not rip everyone off. I mean, everyone who has any kind of investment in the bank, in an investment portfolio or whatever, has lost a fortune in these times. So this is the time when the banks need to support all those families.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, listen, I'm just going to use that, not to sort of move off a very serious topic, but I actually just want to use it as a quick segue into VBites, because as I've got to know you, I've also got to know VBites. It's a brand that I think everybody has seen on a shelf, but kind of not that many people have either sort of, like, it's one of those brands that's just always been there, but perhaps people haven't taken notice of. And I think it's an incredibly impressive brand as well. There's the factory stuff, which we can talk about, but like, how many, just give everyone like the 1 minute elevator pitch of VBites, because it is a fascinating business.
VBites were the #1 chilled and frozen business for Holland & Barrett for 20 odd years. They were called Redwood before then. 140 products, and that was the VBites brand, and that was exclusive to Holland & Barrett. Got very old brand looking wise, but it sold, so they said don't bother changing it. Then Holland & Barrett sold out from Carlisle to Letter One recently, and Letter One just wiped out everything that Peter Alders, the CEO, had built up to make it gelatin free and more ethical and everything. And then they delisted all their chilled sort of sectors. So we started moving into other countries. We're in 24 countries at the moment, but everything you buy generally of any quality, like Morrison's free from cheese we were doing, and now we're doing Applewood Northland dairy free cheese. We do the cheese on the Goodfellas pizzas that's vegan. For Birdseye, that's ours. We're just about to go into Domino's Pizza, Prezzo, We do Papa John's hot dogs, and we're going, we should know in the next couple of weeks if we're going on the Papa John's pizzas. So a lot of the stuff you see that's vegan, we do like the vegan chicken goujons that go in the Co-op's katsu curry. And it doesn't have our name on, but and I never put our name on there because I was fighting the press for so long that I thought, oh, if Murdoch finds out I own that company that's been going forever, they'll destroy that as well as all the charities and everything else they destroyed. So I was,
she's in all of our meals. I can see the headlines now.
Been feeding you for 26 years, so I just thought let everyone think I'm just a dumb blonde bimbo that married a famous man, and then they can find out later. So. Yeah, we're basically the company, a family business that have been feeding the nation vegan food for a long time, and now it's the best products. It's British. We have 600,000 square feet of manufacturing facilities from Corby to Newcastle. When Brexit happened, a lot of the big companies found it too expensive to close down in other countries, so they closed down in Britain. Because we're so stupid, we didn't even have caveats in the contracts of when we gave grants to these huge companies. What they should have done, especially in Newcastle particularly, these companies would get these massive grants. And I would have had a caveat that said, the second you leave, that grant goes back into the community to help service that community that gave you the grant in the first place. But they didn't do that. So I went up to Newcastle to save a number of closed down factories through Brexit, and created Plant-Based Valley and took a load of small family businesses up there so they could scale up and work in a plant-based facility. Because the biggest problem at the moment is most of the supermarkets import their products from Europe and they're made in mixed facilities. There's a couple that aren't, but not many. Whereas VBites is 100% plant-based. So forget about being vegan. If you've got allergens or intolerances or anything, our vegan cheese, VBites and Applewood Northland, is made in a 100% plant-based facility. And the reason I bought these massive factories, and everyone says she's completely mad, no one goes like that from a small business, was because I knew if we didn't go big, we would go bust. And knowing where the vegan sector was going, I knew that the big companies like Heinz Kraft and Unilever's and the Kerry groups, they didn't have 100% plant-based facilities. So we knew we had the best products and we could offer to private label for all these different companies, but they would need mass scale because you need a supply chain. And like Beyond Meat in America has only got a tiny 30,000 square foot factory. So it has to rely on lots of little, sub-suppliers in mixed facilities. So they're desperately building a big place in the Netherlands. But apart from them and maybe Maple Leaf that did a sister company called Greenleaf, they're building a big facility. There literally aren't any meat, fish and dairy free, 100% plant-based facilities in the Western world.
That's crazy.
Even Quorn only has 6,000 square feet of vegan plant-based facility. The rest is vegetarian, and there's always risk of cross-contamination.
And you said 52 acres or something, isn't it?
It's many acres. It's big. It's 600,000 square feet. It's enormous. One was an ex-Pepsi Cola Walker's factory, and the other was Coty Procter Gamble factory. And they built a 15 million extension that they never used because Brexit came up and went off, and it's like pharmaceutical level. And the community is very dependent on employment for that area because, we Geordies generally walk to work.
Yeah.
And we've got this mentality, if you've got to drive through the Tyne Tunnel, we're not driving that 20 minutes, So they like to be able to walk to work, which makes them very committed, dedicated workers. And because I took the Pepsi Walker's factory, we had a ready-made team because it'd been there since 1964 that needed the work and could walk straight in and had the right ethics and were hard workers.
Brilliant.
And then Coty Procter Gamble, we had a high-level biotech pharmaceutical to get on with our algae.
Right, you knew I was coming on to this. This I find remarkable. It is obviously Mental Health Awareness Week. I obviously have a very vested interest in this topic. explain why algae is going to be a tool in the fight against sort of managing our mental health? Because again, this just blew my very damaged little brain. It was brilliant.
Sorry, what was the question? It cut out there a second.
Well, tell us about the algae.
Right. Okay. So as I touched on previously earlier, when I went vegan, and then I heard that the Dalai Lama couldn't give up fish, and Buddhists are meant to be 100% vegan, and was actually having fish, I thought, well, why would he be doing that? So I looked into it more and more and found out that a very, very, very tiny percentage of people can't convert a short chain fatty acid from flaxseed, from linseed, to a long chain fatty acid. It really is a tiny percentage. But I didn't want to be responsible, having converted thousands and thousands of people, for someone to suffer depression because they didn't have, the SSRIs and from the long chain fatty acids. So I thought, well, long chain fatty acids come from algae. They don't come from fish, and the fish eat the algae and store it in their tissues. And because we are a country that's basically full of farm fish, they're not getting the omega-3s. So I said, we need to make a good, strong algae with high DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, and EPA, icosapentaenoic acid. And that will help brain function, digestive system, everything. So it took me 15 years. Now, there was one big company, still is, in America called DSM Martech. And they had a patent. So we developed a higher level DHA, solventless, but we couldn't put it to market till that patent ran out. So I spent and invested quite a few million to develop this and the science behind it, so that I could feel reassured that people weren't going to get mental health problems from going vegan. And then I got it all together and basically made them into vegan supplements and launched them probably about 5 months ago, called VMega3. So and then did 421 milligrams of DHA, and then we tested them for about 4 years on people, and it just made such a massive difference. It was amazing. People started off with 2 capsules a day and then went down to just 1. If you're not vegan and you eat fish, you don't need as much, but you've got the other detrimental sides of the fish and the environment and mercury and things like that if you're not getting it very, very fresh. Yep. So I eat 1 capsule now, and then I squeeze 1 and put it on my face for my vanity at 52, because it helps do a fake plump.
I might try that. Yeah. I was going to open digesting them. I might start wearing them.
Yeah. It's not as stinky as fish, but I just rub it in at night, and then I eat 1 with a bit of zinc and a bit of B12, and that's all you need. Everyone talks about vegans, you've got to take vitamins and minerals. They just, like everybody, everyone needs omega-3s. I mean, your adrenal glands burn the heck out of all your B vitamins, vegan or not, when you're under stress. And if anyone's feeling tired or angst or depressive, you can't right now, but get a B12 shot right in your bum, feel different in 5 days. Or just really up your B12s and your B complexes for energy and for, feeling good about yourself.
Top nice. I started taking the VMega tablets because you gave me some last year, and they do make a difference.
Yeah. It gives you that extra pep. And the thing is, in this environment at the moment, you'll get people that have long-term roller coaster mental health issues, but you'll also get situational depression. That is literally the situation you're in, whether that's COVID isolation, whether that's a bad relationship, whether that's the loss of a job or a family member. It can be for a limited period of time. So it might mean that you need that extra help and that extra boost period. And so rather than have to go on antidepressants, which some people really do need that, you can help, boost and supplement with omega-3s.
Yeah, it's a brilliant product, and I think what's remarkable is that you have got your fingers in so many pies, but they're all coming back to the same one thing. Like it's all driven from the same place. It's remarkable.
Well, it's just about problem solving, and that's what's so frustrating for the big companies that are trying to come up. I'm having these calls all day every week from different big names saying, well, what do you think we should do, and what do you this? And I feel like a parrot because I've done it for 26 years. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Surely you've watched David Attenborough. Surely you've educate yourself a little bit. And they're like, no, what? And they're in these positions of power where they can feed the nation healthier, great tasting food, but that's cost efficient, but they just don't get it. So you have to, wean them slowly into understanding what the solutions are. And bottom line is the problem solving is eat food that tastes great, that's cost effective. Don't be extreme. Work out what's good for you. And then, as you become more and more and more towards the vegan lifestyle and away from, being a carnivore into the flexitarian, and you start to feel better, my boyfriend Mike that you've met, he was a full-on heavy carnivore with no education in vitamins, minerals, nothing. He just did a lot of sport, and he, like everyone else, thought meat, muscles, muscles, muscles. And he's a highly, exceptionally smart guy. So I never told him go vegan. I just fed him. And when you feed them more and more and more, and now we're in lockdown, he can't go anywhere else because it's a vegan household. He's lost about, 7 or 8 pounds, gained muscle, and he doesn't understand why, because he didn't know vegans had muscle. And then I just got him to watch Game Changers. And because all men care about are their erections, then that converts them in 2 seconds. Not that he's ever had a problem, but the whole urology thing on that, it's the quickest converter of men, because they go, hang on a second, that can't be right. The vegans had more erections in the night than the carnivores. That can't be.
Game Changers was brilliant. It was brilliant. I'm moving on from conversation about that. I think it's true. And so many athletes as well have come out as vegan recently, and people are like, "Well, David Hay, the heavyweight boxer, he's a vegan. Like that can't be right." And just remarkable, really, absolutely remarkable.
Well, we've converted. I mean, most of the sports athletes out there, we've converted them for going back 15 years, 6-time overall world champions. In ski racing, we converted to vegan 5 years ago, but he couldn't come out as vegan because he was sponsored as a team by a famous fast food chain. So they couldn't come out and say it because they're part of but he'd been vegan, but now he's retired. He's come out and shouted about it. So you'll find more and more. I remember Carl Lewis many, many years ago coming round to my house in LA and saying that, he'd become vegetarian. I said, well, if you want to be your absolute ultimate best, you've got to be vegan, because dairy is actually worse than meat. So there's a lot of people, but it was always frowned upon. And like you said, people thought, hairy armpit, Birkenstock, white people. So it wasn't anything you ever shouted about. We've tried to make vegan hip and sexy and cool. Vegan makeup I did because I found out when I was doing a speech in Dubai on the QE2, it was to all, the Middle East area. And I saw all the women, with their burqas and everything, beautiful makeup on their eyes. And afterwards I said, what makeup do you use? And they said some of the big brands. And I said, you do know it's got pig in it, don't you? And they went, what? And I said, yeah, the makeup you're wearing actually has pig in it, whereas our makeup is halal and kosher and everything. It's just for everybody and good for your skin. So we suddenly got these huge orders because they still want to look beautiful. And women a lot of the time want to wear makeup, not right now, as you can see, but generally we want to look good, but we want to do it with ethical reasons. And it's like the wine business I did, which I just give out as gifts to customers and stuff. People didn't know. They said, why have you got a vegan wine? What's vegan wine? And I said, well, that's why I've done it, because you don't know that most wine isn't vegan. In the refining process, they use egg albumin and fish protein bladder. And people go, do they really? But it's only really, really cheap wines that do that. I remember Guinness, when we talked to them forever ago, and they said they would never, ever go vegan. But once they realized they could make Guinness Vegan, not
Yeah.
shout about it, which they did years ago. Now they're going to
That's
shout
gonna be the
about
trick. That's going to be the trick. Like you hiding, you know, VBites and everything, and people not knowing. It's just got to be there, and people don't realize it.
it. Yeah,
Because I think
they find out.
there's a connotation.
Sorry.
There's a connotation, isn't there, when you go like, you know, oh, it's vegan. People go like, oh, why do I want that? So you just put it in there. If it's better for people, just have it there.
Well, that's why in some countries we brand our VBites plant-based, and then in other ones it says vegan. So yeah.
Just really quickly, what we got? We got about 5 minutes, and I'll leave you to your evening. Do you mind? We were talking at this conference thing together a couple of weeks ago, this online thing, and you mentioned about what you did to one of the VBites businesses or the vegan businesses about giving everybody the empowerment to run it.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to talk about that?
It depends what you're going to ask about it, but yeah. I mean,
so what I was really fascinated about is how you basically like empower your workforce. You basically just let them get on with it. And what I mean by that is like some business leaders, because I just wanted like one business related questions. We've talked about all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I love hearing you talking about like the empowerment of your workforce, where you basically step back and just let them get on with running your various businesses. I think a lot of business leaders hang on to things quite tightly, whereas you're very much like, you know, I'm up here, I'm looking down on everything, but I trust everyone that works for me. And it just struck me as a good tip for business leaders.
You know, people that don't know me think I'm a control freak, like who just see my intensity and my passion and my knowledge and my enthusiasm. But I'm very much a problem solver when there's a problem to fix. When there's nothing to fix, I will step back and then I will move on to something else. So you've got to remember, our business has been going for a long, long time. And most of my staff have been with me, you know, for 15 to 18 years now. And people come in, they last 2 weeks and they're out, or they're in for life.
Yeah.
We have a certain mindset, and I like to put trust in people. It's backfired on me a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I find sometimes when you allow people to learn from their mistakes, that they grow in themselves. You know, a really lovely story. When I was had a TV show with Esther Ranson, just to finish off quickly, in the 90s, and it was an undercover investigative show. And then we went in to do a show called City Hospital. And in the morning we had to start really early. It was a live show. And the makeup artist was an absolutely lovely girl, but she was awful at doing hair. So I didn't want her to get fired. So I found a local hairdresser who was, you know, a young lady. And I begged her to do my hair at 6 a.m. before I went live on the TV show, so that the makeup artist who was meant to do hair and makeup didn't lose her job. So I would get up an extra hour early to get my hair done by this one to turn up on set. Anyway, I ended up talking to her and thinking, this girl could do really great things, learning more and more about what she was. Hairdressers are great, but I knew she could do even more. And she came to work for me back in the 90s. And she worked for me for 13 years. And then she went off to have a family. She's got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old now. And we spoke again last week. And she said, and she was just working locally. So she's coming back to work for me again. And she's worked as a top PA in her area ever since and become very, very successful. But she's now wants to come back and work in the mindset of companies that are actually trying to make a difference.
Yeah.
I
love it. I mean, I've learned so much from you in terms of how to be a better manager as well. Well, that's where I was getting at, is the just empowering and trusting your workforce. There's a really good business tip in there. Listen, I'm going to fire a couple of quick ones at you, really quick, and then I'll wrap up, because I've taken up your precious evening, and I do appreciate it. Favorite book? Go.
Oh, Second Bounce of the Ball at the moment.
Good.
I've never really read any advice books, but I've thought, what more do I need to learn? So yeah, Second Bounce of the Ball. I'm reading right.
I know we're not supposed to pick between our favourites, but favorite VBites product?
Oh, the fish steak, vegan fish steak.
Mine is the cheese that Asda sold out of. Or is it Asda?
Northland, yeah.
That's a good
No,
one.
it's really
And the
good in cheese toasties. It's really good in.
Yeah. Favorite movie?
Oh, Betty Blue.
Okay, good choice. Favorite song?
ELO, Mr. Blue Sky. Always.
Brilliant. And finally, favorite quote?
Monuments were never built for the criticized. Monuments were never built for the critics. They were built for the criticized. So don't worry about what anyone says, because if they're criticizing you, you're probably doing something great.
Oh, philosopher, I love it. And just finally, okay, what's going to happen with you for the next 12 months, and what have you got kind of coming up?
Oh, massive scale up. Some big things going on in America now. It's sort of reopened. And just trying to keep our heads above the parapet until food service kicks back in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a third of our business put on hold. So just keep our heads above water and be happy that we can right now, and just live every day, because no one knows if we have tomorrow. So enjoy your family, love each other, and compartmentalize the business stress. Just slap that computer lid down.
She's training that on me. Listen, Heather, like genuinely from the bottom of my heart, I feel so privileged to have you in my life, and not like I thought you were this celebrity lady before I met you, and actually you're just a bloody good human being, and a genuine joy. And I'm quite looking forward for lockdown over summer, so we can hang out and barbecue some like fake meat.
Mega burgers, yeah.
We'll do it. And I am looking forward to catching up with you properly. But honestly, thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for all your campaigning. Thank you for all your charity work. Thank you for all your empowerment and inspiring my daughter, and the people that you kind of give those pedestals to and lift them up. I mean, genuinely, you don't get enough credit for everything you do. So thank you so much. I hope you all stay well and healthy, and I'll see you on the other side.
Okay, thanks so much, Pete. It's been fun. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.